Hello everyone and welcome back to Suzerain Kingdom of Rizia edition, where things were in an interesting spot. We had a bit of a energy crisis, or more political crisis about energy in the last episode, with Palace and with Lesbia overall. And I'm hoping we've kind of deterred any diplomatic incidents from happening. I don't know, but I'm hoping nonetheless that will be sorted. We've got our gas field coming in one turn, and the dam coming in 3 turns. That's a little bit further away, but when we do, we should have very good energy security. And I think we will also get some energy once we get the palace situation sorted. For now, though, we need to go to Isa, as there's a request for cooperation from Wayland. Wayland's intelligence forces have asked out for our cooperation in their investigation of the Zeal bombing. This means that Rizian security would be obliged to share any any information they have found, and vice versa. Yes, we'll cooperate. We'll try to be seen as open and understanding, and try cultivate some kind of good political will between the countries. Okay, so wine exports soar amidst trade surge. Rizia's vineyards are flourishing with heavy demand from a remarkable surge in wine exports, particularly to Sourland and other East Merkopan nations. This unexpected boon has created a significant surplus in trade, positively impacting our national budget. Our strategic decision now is how best to allocate this additional resource. I'm not sure it really matters. Rizia's viticulture will travel around the world, or other nations should enjoy vintage as much as I do. We'll travel around the world. Good. It's not additional budget going forward, though, but it is just one budget, which is useful to be, because we probably need to do some more things in terms of our royal decrees. There's quite a few we can do. I'm wary of stuff like the provincial obligation, the levies. It gives a lot of power to local authorities, and I'm scared of a coup. I don't know whether to enact that or not. We'll have to see. I'm intrigued by this geological survey. 2 budget, 2 authority down. I think we have more important things to be doing, unfortunately. We'll have to see. In the meantime, let's go to the Republic of Kairut for the Alliance of Nations South Merkopan session. It was a rainy day in Kairut, one of only a handful the island experienced per year. The sound of the falling drops on the Alliance of Nations dome made for an unexpectedly soothing backdrop to what I could tell was going to be a tense session. I sat with Lorenta and the rest of the Rizia delegation in the half-full assembly hall. Today's session was to focus on South Merkopa only. Looking around the room, I could see representatives and leaders from Wayland, Morella, Durdia, and Lesbia. Duke Axel Reinhardt and Patricia Alvarez entered late, deep in conversation. They nodded at each other and took seats with their respective delegations. Did I make a mistake? Should we fought harder for our half of the field? We saved ourselves a lot of unnecessary tension. I would call that a win. Are you well, Your Majesty? Your father always had a case of nerves before this session. I'm fine, Mr. Escobar. I appreciate your concern. We turned our attention to the front of the room as President Nines called the meeting to order. This was a special session, so the opening remarks were kept short. Before I knew it, it was time for the individual leaders of South Merkopa to present their speeches. Prime Minister Almos Sultana showed up to the podium. She had to lower the microphone to reach it. Big trouble in a small package. We'll hear what she has to say before we pass judgment. The Morella leader greeted the assembly. Her voice had a melodic lilt to it that I associated with Kinal. Mr. President, esteemed leaders and distinguished guests, it is my honour to speak in these hallowed halls for the first time. I come before you as a representative of the new Morella, a country committed to breaking free from the shackles of our repressive past. A country that is now truly aligned with the AAN values of justice, solidarity and human dignity. And one that is proud to build bridges with those who share our vision of a more equal society. She nodded towards the upper seats of the assembly room. I look behind me to see Vagazanian Chancellor Emmerich Hegel applauding fiercely. I thought this was a South Merkopan session. Chancellor Hegel is not on the speaking programme. He must have flown to Cairo solely to support Madam Prime Minister. It is a time of transition for Morella, but as we redefine our principles and our partnerships, one fact becomes abundantly clear. We can no longer abide the senseless exploitation of our land, people and resources. This is going to be about the international trade zone. She hasn't taken her eye off the topic since her election. For too long, our so-called partners in the Meftium International Trade Zone have dug the ground out from under us. We've allowed them to ravage our soil and abuse our workers while reaping more than their fair share of the profits. They send security forces to guard their gold, yet lead the rest of Morella to the mercy of Durdian terrorists. Meanwhile, the shocking lack of mining regulations in countries such as Rizia show they are no less careless at home than abroad. Why she named me asked about the corruption in lesbian industries. Morella's international profile isn't large enough to go after a country of lesbian stature yet. Morella calls on the Alliance of Nations to recognise our human rights struggle, and to accept that if the Meftium ITZ is to continue, any wealth it generates must be reinvested in the Morellan people. Brava, Madam Prime Minister. Chancellor Hegel was standing now, and the other AN guests turned their head in his direction. As fellow stewards of the International Trade Zone and fellow soldiers in the fight against imperialism, the nation of Vagastan supports Morella in its journey. Are you sure that he can't get her into the CSP? Not until Morella improves its military, which may be the reason for this sudden interest in nationalisation. Hegel sat down, and Nines, whoever your name is, motioned for Prime Minister Sultana to continue. I thank you all for your attention today and look forward to forging a brighter future for the people of South Merkopa. All of them. Lorenzo turned to me as the Morellan Prime Minister wrapped up her speech and returned to her seat. It seems the trade zone is going to be more of a sticking point than I thought. Nothing's going to be decided anyway. No, hell. I just hope she doesn't expect me to deal with Dirty on her behalf. Speaking of which, Supreme Wiseman Yorga Asmal stepped onto the stage dressed in a ceremonial robe with silver trim. So he's the Wiseman of Dirdia. For speaking, he waved his hand in the air 6 times, representing the 6 pillars of Golkondism. I'm surprised they flew out here. Dirdia's Supreme Wiseman normally refrains from speaking in public. Whatever he has to say must be important. I admit I'm very curious. The Supreme Wiseman spoke in a deep baritone. Dear great and powerful leaders of South Merkopa, in the name of Prophet Rurik, I salute you all. I am humble enough to know that we men alone cannot decide the fate of a continent, not without God's guidance. And it is God who has guided me here today. We are one of the few nations brave enough to let themselves be ruled by his law, but we are also a country like any other. Yet our attempts to find common ground with our neighbours has been rebuffed over and over, solely on the account of our beliefs. I looked over where Alma Sultan was sitting, and she was openly scowling. The Prime Minister of Morella accuses us of violating her borders, yet it was not so long ago that we were one country. Because of arbitrary lines which have been drawn, my people can no longer visit the graves of their ancestors or the shrines which they once worshipped. Every single one of us, Dirdia, Morella, Rizia, Wayland, we all have different views, yet we are all united by the divine path of St. Rurik. It is my humble request that we Dirdians be allowed to follow that path as we have for centuries. But Dirdians are also terrorists at points, aren't they? Yes, he's far from the seven piece that he makes himself out to be. On that note, concerns have been raised about the missile tests my country has been conducting. Our aim has only ever been to protect our people and way of life. It is God's will that we use this technology not for evil, but to contribute to global security and stability. Alma Sultana started laughing. That's not funny, it's scary. What's scary is if he finds the wrong buyer for this technology. Asmal put his hands on the podium. How far we have fallen, that the only country in South Merkopa where the pillars of unity still stand tall is treated as a laughingstock. You all speak of superpowers, but I know there's only one superpower we need to worry about. He pointed upwards. The sooner our nations come together under him, the sooner true peace and prosperity can be realized. Supreme Wiseman Asmar made the pillar sign again as he exited the stage. We can make a joke. The chandelier is a superpower. Lorento held back a laugh. Oh, but now it's time for the real heavy artillery. He gestured to an aide to begin taking notes as President Nins announced Victor Smolak. President Wayland, let's see how this goes. There were some whispers from within the room as Wayland's president stood up to the podium. He silenced them with a theatrical shushing motion, then continued. Dear fellow leaders, I wish I could say I was happy to be here, standing as one of the 6 proud nations of South Merkopa. And yet I feel only sorrow that our magnificent region has let itself be torn apart by forces greater than ourselves. I speak, of course, of Arcasia and Rumberg. Conveniently leaving out United Contana. Yes, it doesn't count if the superpower is his patron. Convinced of the idea that might makes right, they sow discord among us in order to strengthen themselves. And Wayland, poor war-torn Wayland, must pay the price. Who among you can deny ATO's involvement in the Wayland Civil War, or Rumberg's shipping of arms to the British separatist movement? Nobody in the hall said a word. Victor looked up at me directly. It is my everlasting regret that when Wayland was at its weakness, our direct neighbours opted for an alliance with a nation that sought us harm at every turn. I do not blame the Kingdom of Rizia for its decision, but neither can I ignore that for the past 20 years Rumberg has maintained a presence to both our north and south. In light of that, I simply cannot accept that the Zeal bombing, the most heinous terrorist attack to occur in Wayland since the Civil War, was the work of a few rogue agents. Rizia has been investigating the organisation that we believe to be responsible, but it is a tactic to throw us off track. Rumberg isn't beneath such subterfuge. What is to stop such violence from reoccurring? What will happen to the Mosaics who remain Zeal their home once Rizia, and by proxy Rumberg, regains control of the region? I am a man who respects the rule of law, yet I cannot put my country, people, at risk by abandoning the territory while these questions still hang in the air. Here it comes. That is why I've decided to invoke the AN Threat Mitigation Protocol for treaty obligations to delay the return of Zeal till that risk is neutralized. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. I felt many pairs of eyes on me. Is that a real thing? It is, Your Majesty, but no nation has ever invoked it before. The murmurs in the room were growing louder, and President Nins banged a gavel for silence. If I may continue, it is not my intention to keep custody of the Zeal region forever. The sooner the safety and security are restored, the sooner we may begin preparing for an orderly transition. I hope for swift cooperation from His Majesty King Romulus and my fellow South Merkopan nations. Together we are strong. He raised his arms in expectation of applause, and none came. None of our neighbours are openly taking Wayland's side. That bodes well for us. Victor shook his head and left the stage. What do I do? You'll have a chance to comment soon enough. I'll get in touch with Wayland's foreign ministers as soon as we're back home. There may still be a way to straighten things out. Now let's see if Prime Minister Alvarez delivers the support he promised you. Yes, this is important. This is very important. We sided with Lesbia for a reason. Prime Minister Patricia Alvarez was next. He straightened his tie as he approached the microphone. Mr. President, may I just start by voicing my unwavering support for this fine organisation and the role that it plays. Were it not for the Alliance of Nations, there would be no way to stop our country's petty quarrels from devouring this world. Which, ladies and gentlemen, is precisely what's in danger of happening today. As we learned mere moments ago, the state of Wayland is holding on to the Zeal region under the pretences of national security. We consider this nothing less than a socialist incursion into our beloved value systems. Rizia has done nothing but abide by the law, while Wayland attempts to control which it does not own. We feel nothing but sympathy for the victims of the terrorist attack in Zeal, but we do not believe said attack is a reason to delay the region's return. As a matter of fact, from this point forwards, Wayland's actions in Zeal should be considered an illegal occupation of Rizian territory. Here. Around a lukewarm applause came from those assembled. Lesbia's support is encouraging, but we may have to work harder to get other neighbours on our side. And I am afraid I must address yet another threat to the Southern Merkopa masterminded by the Malionovist East. I speak, of course, of the conspiracy to nationalise the Mefdium International Trade Zone. Chancellor Hegel stood up again, and Alvarez ignored him. Let us not for 1 second believe that Morella is acting of its own accord. The long of the Contanan Security Pact is behind this. By giving in to Prime Minister Sultana's demands, the nations of Lesbia and Rizia would be effectively paying to increase United Contana's sphere of influence. I know I'm not alone in wanting to avoid these disastrous consequences. He looked at the Pelesian delegation. Reinhardt and his ministers politely applauded. I will remind Morella and Vagasland that the Alliance of Nations is watching, as is the ATO. Any attempt to seize the international trade zone by unlawful means will be met with retaliation. Oh goodness, this is going to get out of hand quickly. That will be all. I was expecting more help with Wellen. It's a tough crowd to sway in either direction. Looks like Pallas is next. Now, Mr. Reinhardt, are you going to support us or not? Duke Reinhardt stepped up to the podium. With a spotlight on the Pelesian leader, I could see that he had stubble on his chin and dark circles under his eyes. We won't say anything. Lorenzo raised his eyebrows at the Duke's appearance, and I didn't comment. Duke Reinhardt cleared his throat and shoved a few papers around. As the leader of the youngest nation in Southern Merkopa, I'm humbled to be in this great hall. I'm fully aware that everyone else in the room has spent their lives preparing to be in power, whereas me, let's just say that calling me a dilettante would be generous. I heard laughter from around the hall. We'll laugh as well, we'll join in. But just because I am inexperienced does not mean that I am naive. Since the fall of the Valgus Empire, Pallas has been battled over by nations much more powerful than itself. The Grand Duchy may be small, but it is not a plaything. Look at the art, literature, and thought that has come out of Pallas in the last 30 years, and look at our technological innovation. He glanced at Patricio Alvarez. Yes, much of that was the result of our partnership with Lesbia. But it is ultimately our hope to stand tall on our own, while not forgetting the debt we owe to our benefactors. I think of Pallas as a new kind of monarchy, one that is young, flexible, and in line with modern values. And I invite my other colleagues in this esteemed organisation to engage with us as equals, irrespective of the way we've been treated in the past. Furthermore, Criminal! Duke Reinhardt looked shaken by the interjection. Oh well, as I was saying, we Pelesians... No, I cannot stay silent while you make your entitled demands. Your family used Pallas as a base to pillage the Xenon continent. Everything you had you stole from someone else. And rather than give it back when the revolution forced your hand, you begged the capitalist swine of Lesbia to help you hold on to your ill-gotten gains. I beg your pardon, Chancellor Hegel, but I'm not responsible for my family's sins. But you're happy to profit from them, aren't you? Up there in your glass castle. I'll tell you, Duke Reinhardt, the cracks are beginning to show. You cannot talk to a duke this way, Chancellor Hegel. Be silent. Hegel frowned at me. You are equally culpable, Your Majesty. The days of both your monarchies are numbered. After a short back and forth, the President issued the Chancellor a stern warning. He glared out from his seat as Duke Reinhardt finished his speech. He tapped on the mic nervously. I see the Chancellor is still resentful that the people of Pallas chose the firm leadership of the Reinhardt family over the chaos of revolution. Yes, the Grand Duchy aided the colonialist aims of the Valgus Empire, but like Vagasland, we are ready to put that behind us and look towards the future. We simply have a different vision. Pallas may not have yet earned its spot in this assembly, but my hope is that it will. His voice had regained its full confidence now, and any nation that attempts to stop us from doing so will be met with a strong and resolute response. He rushed back to his seat as chatter erupted from the assembly. It's certainly been an eventful session, Your Majesty. I hope you're ready for your speech. As ready as I'll ever be. I took a deep breath as the President announced my name. Lorenzo gave me a quick smile of encouragement as I left my seat. I stepped up from the podium to a smattering of applause. The delegations of Wellen and Pallas stayed pointedly silent. Oh, come on, Pallas. We came to a solution, surely. Right. Dear esteemed fellow members of the Alliance of Nations. My forebears installed me a great respect for this institution and its values. As we've seen over and over throughout history, our nations can accomplish much more together than we can when apart. That's why I'm so saddened by the division plaguing South Merkopa. I'm aware that the comments made by President Victor Smollett earlier in this session demand a response from me. Ooh, this feels important. This feels very important. The alien threat mitigation protocol can only be invoked under extreme circumstances. In my opinion, Zillinson is not one of them. The bombing was a tragedy, however my kingdom has taken the necessary steps to ensure it will not be repeated. I appreciate Alvaro's boldness in speaking out against Wayland today. Like me, he knows there is more at stake than a mere sliver of Rizia. We're fighting for the future of South Merkopa. We'll see if we can ask Duke Reinhardt to join us. Duke Reinhardt, given the Grand Duchy's close ties to Lesbia, I would think you'd lie with Mr. Alvarez on this vital issue. Axel Reinhardt stayed motionless in his seat. I call on the rest of you to choose a side. History may ride on this outcome. I'm not finished yet. I cannot ignore the presence of Chancellor Hegel and his newfound interest in our neighbour. I saw Hegel lean forward in his seat intently. Oh goodness, what do we say? Rizia and Morella have maintained good relations for centuries. It pains me to see this noble country fall victim to Vagasland's influence. If Prime Minister Sultana is unhappy with the terms of the International Trade Zone, all she needs to do is tell us. I'm not opposed to reopening negotiations as long as Rizia is able to provide for its citizens. I look forward to discussing this further at the next ITZ board meeting. So does Lesbia, I might add. The Morella and Vagaslandian delegations broke into hushed whispers, and the President gestured for silence again, and then motioned for me to continue. I do believe a compromise can be reached regarding Dodia's religious travellers. Their right to their sacred sites mustn't be ignored, but neither should the violent methods they've employed in the past. Scattered applause came from around the Assembly Hall. And finally, a word regarding Palace. Despite the past differences between the Rizia and the Grand Duchy, I still see a way forward for us. The fact that my kingdom has let go of its rightful claim on the gas field proves that we are serious. No less useful. And in fact, after speaking with the Prime Minister Alvarez of Lesbia in the wake of the recent gas deal, I'm convinced that the harmony can be maintained between our three nations. It is in our interest that the sharing of exploration rights go as smoothly as possible. Regarding the remarks made by Chancellor Hegel, there is no need to punish Duke Reinhardt for his ancestors' crimes. Duke Reinhardt and his delegation broke into enthusiastic applause. Let's see if we can get Duke Reinhardt and Grand Duchy Palace inside. The President motioned to the clock. My speech will run over its time. I will conclude you with these words. President Smollett was wrong. It's not the superpowers who are tearing us apart. We are doing it to ourselves. But I hope that we may find our way back to each other. Thank you. I sat down and ate and me a glass of water. Well done, Your Majesty. It'll take a while to digest the ramifications. Let's update on all this once we're back in Rizia. Filing back out of the assembly hall, I noticed the sound of rain on the dome had stopped. Another sunny day in Constantium. I'm not sure how he really did there. We'll have to see the long-term ramifications of such a thing happening. So we've got a wine event and a public transportation inefficiency crisis. Let's have a look at that first. Rizia's public transportation system is grappling with an efficiency crisis, strained by burgeoning demands and passenger numbers. Transportation officials are pushing for urgent action, highlighting the need for increasing funding and modernisation. The government must decide between investing in infrastructural improvements, technological upgrades, or exploring additional transit solutions. The outcome will crucially impact the daily lives of Rizians and the efficiency of urban mobility. The Rizian infrastructure network is our backbone. I'm not really sure what the consequences of signing either of those was. We'll read the report. Due to a technical issue affecting a vital railroad switch near Calais, train traffic between Port Dresden and Monkeys has been cut. While the issue is likely to be resolved within a few days, the closure of the vital railway is affecting not just passenger traffic, but the transport of goods between Monkeys' harbour and the rest of the country. Right, off to a wine event. In the fertile lands of Calais, the Quantavo vineyards were among the oldest in Rizia. They were run by a revered winemaking family now in their 5th generation, who'd long ago been awarded noble status for their fine wines provided to the kingdom. Tonight they invited my family and council over for the ceremonial uncorking of their latest vintage, Romus the Red. Bottled on my coronation day, it was now ready for drinking. I wished I was in more celebratory of a mood. Whelan's announcement of the AN had plunged the country into panic. I was besieged by demands to take action to get Zeal back. For now, all I had to do was open a wine bottle, but even that was politicised. Hugo had stressed the importance of keeping the Quantavo family loyal to our house. A motorcade rolled up at the vineyard entrance, where a festival tent decorated in blue, white and gold with a Rizian flag had been set up. After a thorough security sweep, my mother, Estella, Vina, Hugo and I proceeded to our table. Pebble smoothly approached and poured us glasses of sparkling water. I had the pleasure of supervising the pre-tasting with the vineyard staff. I must say, the family has truly outdone themselves this time. How splendid, I can't wait. I honestly think you'll love it. It's light on the palate at first, but it has hidden depths. That sounds perfect, Mr. Andrea, but please stick to conservative pours for His Majesty. It's unbecoming if you came to get intoxicated at these functions. Lucita, Elena and Lorenzo walked past us and were seated at the table next to ours. All three were dressed more festively than the simple formal wear that they wore to council meetings, but Lucita's slinky, intricately beaded yellow gown was particularly eye-catching. Ah yes, our hidden love. My mother turned to me and muttered under her breath, "Oh, come on, Estella." Oh my, the mountains of Montacla are on full display tonight. I don't know what to respond to that with. What mountains are you talking about? Let's feign ignorance. Vina rolled her eyes and ran a finger along the rim of her glass. I still don't understand what we're doing here, especially with all that's going on. Politics, Your Highness. In case our foreign situation escalates, will require the support of House Taurus and our home province more than ever. Venus made a point. Shouldn't I talk with President Smolak about Zeal? It should really be a priority. Mr. Esquivel has already set up a meeting, Your Majesty. He has a team putting together our case as we speak. For now, it's important we assure our wealthiest citizens that the situation will not affect their assets. The rest of the attendees begin filing in. It was a small elite crowd comprising barons and baronesses, viscounts and CEOs from around the region. They bowed as they passed my table, but some of their smiles seemed ungenuine. I thought I heard someone whisper sword lover. Estella flashed me a look of warning. There's no pleasing these people, darling. Better to ignore them. After everyone had settled in, the head of the winery gave me a short opening greeting, then welcomed me onto the stage. I stepped behind the microphone, and a magnum-sized bottle of Romus the Red stood on the table behind me. Ladies and gentlemen, Today we raise the glasses to our fine province, the foundation upon which this kingdom stands. This wine will inspire reverence for the venerable House Taurus, the nation of Rizia, in anyone whose lips it touches. Yes, even swords. I heard a few chuckles. I'm heartened that so many of you have come here to celebrate tonight, especially in wake of recent events. I'm confident with your help, Rizia will become stronger than ever. I'm a proud son of Valkyrius, and I assure you that my home province will always come first for me. Yet we should not be scared to look outwards to rekindle our international friendships. I think we're going to have to go with Lesbia and Palace in general as our friends. Lesbia's politics may greatly differ from ours, but they are still our neighbour. There was a round of polite applause. I couldn't tell what my audience were thinking. I promise that if we open ourselves to new alliances, untold prosperity will be our reward. The attendees applauded slightly more loudly. That's all the applause I get, I'm your king! No, let's not do that. But you're not here to listen to me, you're here to drink wine. I had cheers as a representative. The winery handed me a ceremonial corkscrew and a glass. As a symbol of unity, we'll let our girlfriend come and open the wine. With a stunned yet delighted expression, Lucita took the stage. An assistant quickly procured 2 glasses. My war counsellor opened the bottle and poured us each a small amount. To all of you. And we drink. We clink glasses and drank. Please don't be poisoned. It was delicious, a light, refreshing taste gradually developed into a darker, more complex finish. There was a final round of applause as Lucita and I stepped off the stage. Pablo and the winery staff began circulating around the tables with wine and food. It was an honour to be called onto your stage, Your Majesty, although I'm sure your relations weren't happy with the choice. Let's play nice. I wanted you up there with me. Her eyes widened slightly as she registered my remark. I see, Your Majesty. I hope I performed to your satisfaction. She cast a last look at me before returning to her seat. I spent a good several hours mingling with relatives and fellow nobles, posing for photographs with winemakers and fending off journalists. Every time I attempted to sit down and eat, I was deluged with more requests. My glass, on the other hand, was constantly being refilled. By the end of the evening, I was having some trouble keeping the names and faces straight. The tent gradually emptied out as the guests departed. The winery had an attached luxury villa where our delegation had been invited to stay for the night. Hugo, Estella, Vina, and I began saying our final goodbyes before making our way upstairs. Despite the shaky start, I think our fellow guests came away quite happy. I recall this evening a smashing success, with the emphasis on smashing. Vina was clutching my mother's arm, looking half-dazed. "Romulus the Red, long may he reign," she hiccuped. "That's right, darling, now let's get you to bed." I heard a burst of laughter from the other side of the room. My 3 counsellors were still at their table. Lucita's eyes were sparkling as she regaled the other 2 with an apparently hilarious anecdote. "I'll be right behind you, I just have to say goodnight to my staff." "Take your time, sweetheart." She gave me a knowing smile. Vina was too busy attempting a pirouette in her ball gown to register what I'd said. As my family headed out, I walked over to my counsellor's tables. And he just stormed into my barracks without a stitch on, screaming, "If you weren't a duchess, I'd have you drawn and quartered." What are you 3 so merry about?" "Oh." Sheila and Helena immediately straightened up and stopped laughing. "Your Majesty, the Duchess was telling us about the time she hid her commanding officer's fatigues while he was swimming. It was a dare back in basic training. I had to scrub the kitchen floor for 3 weeks, but it was worth it. It's part of a drinking game, Your Majesty, a rather infantile one." "Oh, we're already quite drunk, but I think having some good relations with our counsellors would not be the worst thing in the world." "If you think you can handle it, Your Majesty." She had a teasing look in her eyes. I wondered how much she'd had to drink. "Pabble, some wine for the king, please." "Right away." Pabble approached the table and gave me a generous pour of Romulus the Red. Should we get Pabble to play too? Why don't you play too, Pabble? I detected cautious excitement in his eyes. "It would be my pleasure, Your Majesty." He sat down, and Lucita rubbed her hands together. Perfect, Babble. And then we'd all love to learn more about you. Now, have you played facts or fiction before? Sure, go over the rules. It's simple. You tell us 3 statements about yourself. 2 of them have to be true, and 1 must be a lie. Each of us guesses which statement is false. If we guess wrong, we have to drink. Suggested to Pabble, who quickly topped up her wine glass. It was just my turn. I'll let His Majesty choose the next player. Since I missed your story, I think you should have another turn, Duchess Azaro. Lucita gave me a sly smile. As you wish, Your Majesty. Despite my Azaro heritage, I couldn't stand the sight of blood as a child. There was time when I fainted from pricking my own finger. My cousin Zola confided in me that she despised her husband-to-be, so I falsified evidence that he was having an affair with a commoner. The engagement was broken off at once, and I have a lucky set of undergarments that I wear to important meetings and military exercises. Lorento raised an eyebrow. Intriguing, did Duchess, but false. Azaro's don't fall prey to superstition. I can see her falsifying evidence. I think it's the blood thing. Agreed, I'm afraid the Duchess has made this too easy. No, the blood story is too implausible, it must be true. I have my doubts about your role in the dissolution of your cousin's engagement. Lucita shook her head. Mr. Escobar had it right. I don't wear lucky underwear on important days. We drink. Lucita continued with a mischievous smile on her face. Actually, on such occasions... I kind of suspected that might be coming. I find it invigorating to wear nothing at all to my uniform. Lorento and Elena shot each other amused looks, and Pabble politely coughed. Perhaps now that would be a good time for Duchess Azaro to retire. There's been a great deal of wine flowing tonight. It's all fun, your Pabble, isn't it, Your Majesty? We all deserve some reprieve from the stiff formalities of royal life. Pabble frowned. My apologies to you both, I was only trying to be helpful. If you'd like to be helpful, you can fetch us a new bottle. This one's almost empty. Straight away, Duchess Azaro. Right, Mr. Werner next. I still find this childish. In my day, if people wanted to get drunk, they get drunk. But if you insist. She thought for a moment. I have an antique coin collection that's worth more than my house. My late husband and I took a 3-week training trip to Galmand and back, and I once had to stop Queen Liza from purchasing a diamond necklace with Rizian treasury money. I think it's the sailing to Galmand. I call foul on the Liza story. Her Majesty was beyond such shenanigans. I can believe Her Majesty Queen Liza would attempt such a purchase, but not that you would stop him, Miss Werner. Lorento grinned and shook his head. This is too easy. There's one thing you hated more than sailing, it was your dearly departed husband. Elena sighed. Yes, that's right. Lucita and Pabble picked up their glasses. Each took a healthy sip. You got a fortune in antique coins, do you? Ask me anything about Marquian ducats and Resinid medallions. Well done, Miss Werner. Who's next? Mr. Escobel. With pleasure. He gives wine a dramatic swell. When I'm in a diplomatic meeting that I know is trivial, I draw caricatures instead of taking notes. When I was out of university, I challenged the mayor of Salabez to a duel, and I accidentally shouted, "All hail the new queen" at His Majesty King Valeria's coronation. I don't think he would have shouted "All hail the new queen." I feel like he's quite good on his protocol. It's more plausible than accounts admitting to the king that he's been trained to take notes at meetings. The duel scenario seems the most far-fetched to me. I've heard the duel story 100 times, Lorento. You didn't challenge the mayor of Salabez, it was the Earl of Viales. Lorento gave her an abashed look. You know me too well, Miss Werner. So Lucita and I also drink. Elena smirked triumphantly, and noticed Pabble's look of slight concern. So you call my father a queen? Quite accidentally, Your Majesty, and it was drowned out in the loud chorus of other voices. How anticlimactic. She tapped on her glass, and Pabble dutifully refilled it. Let's hear from Pabble. My butler gave a graceful nod. Certainly, Your Majesty. My father once made me weed a patch of stinging nettles as punishment for shirking off on duty. Little did I know I rather enjoyed the sensation. I once overheard a Rumburgian royal valet making a demeaning comment about Queen Mother Stella during a diplomatic visit. I persuaded our chef to put an excessive amount of pepper in his food at the staff dinner. In the 1920s, I wrote a poem that was selected for the annual Rizia literary competition. With a fake name, of course. There's the falsehood. Running a royal household doesn't leave one time for poetry. The butler's wine descriptions have version on poetry at times. I prefer to believe he doesn't take perverse pleasure in stinging nettles. And I'd rather not believe the story about the Rumburgian valet, as hilarious as it might have been. I think the pepper story is the right one, because I think, regardless of whatever he thinks, he's still a professional. Pavel shifted in his seat. Actually, that isn't a lie. The poor man was sneezing for the rest of the night. And the weeding, the nettle patch, was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. How brutal of your father. Pavel shrugged. He was worried I was distracting you from your princely duties. Lucita cleared her throat. I think we're forgetting something. Right, all three of us need a drink, and my foreign counsellor had a contemplative look as he put down his glass. I read that compendium regularly. What was your pseudonym? It isn't important. Wait, let me guess. Aha, Paul Adair from 1929. I was the shadow to your light, a silent witness to the burden you bore. A chasm yawns between us now, eager to be filled with talk, with touch. Our two rising tides beneath the setting sun. We are pulled back to each other with a force that knows no bounds. And just as the velvet embrace of night claims the day's end, your fire consumes me, my heart He was interrupted by a sudden clatter coming from Pavel's direction. Everyone turned to look at my butler. Forgive me, I dropped my wine glass. I have it cleared up at once. He turned away to signal a winery staff member. Silence descended around our table. Well, whichever palace maid he wrote that for is one lucky girl. Shall we continue? I'll give it a go. My counsellors looked at each other with no small amount of excitement. I could feel my head spinning. I racked my brains for ideas. I have a birthmark on my chest in the exact shape of the palace administrative district. Growing in Palace Taurus, I once mistook a priceless Markian vase for a urinal. I was having trouble connecting. I blurted out the first thing that came to my mind. I feel so goddamn lonely all the time. I think he probably does, so we'll say that one. The others exchanged troubled looks. Lorento cautiously spoke up. Of course you're not lonely with the family in your palace, Your Majesty, that was the lie. The others quickly nodded their assent. I could see Lucita scrutinizing me closely. No, it's the truth. There was a palpable feeling of tension in the air. My table mates consciously avoided looking at me or each other. So, what was the lie, Your Majesty? Oh, I might have got myself into a little bit of a hole here. Truth lies, what does it matter? Everyone's just going to believe what they want to anyway. Pavel cleared his throat. Your Majesty, you have a long day ahead of you. Why don't we adjourn? But we were just getting to the good stuff. Lorento pushed back his chair. This elder statesman is going to call it an evening, Your Majesty. Thank you for an enlightening time. Yes, we all learned a great deal. Possibly too much. Lucita shook her head. The more intimately we know each other, the better we can fight as a team. It's an old army trick. I will get to the quarters myself, thank you, Pavel. I lurched unsteadily to my feet, and Pavel rushed to my aid and took my arm. Let's go, Your Majesty. I suddenly became acutely aware of how much wine I'd had to drink. Pavel helped me steadily as we made our way upstairs to my suite. He swiftly ushered me inside and took off my coat. The butler's quarters here are connected by an adjoining door. Just knock if you need me. Pavel walked over to the side of the room. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. So, that poem, those feelings. Rom, it was a long time ago. He turned the knob. I can't get the word out that my butler's a pervert. It's fine, Pablo. I'm not going to tell a soul. Relief blossomed across Pavel's face. He bowed. was about us. Thank you. I hope this means my secrets are also safe with you. He looked at me in the eye and nodded. Absolutely, Your Majesty. Good night. He rushed out, closing the door behind him. With some difficulty, I undressed and crawled into bed. I was just starting to drift off to sleep when a soft knock came on the door. We'll answer the door. I went to the door and opened it. Lucita was standing there, still dressed in the beaded gown she'd worn earlier. Your Majesty, I've just received a message of great importance from Wayland Intelligence. May I come in? Of course, Duchess Azaro. Lucita walked into my suite. I followed her and shut the door. As soon as it had shut, she stepped towards me. There was a look of urgency in her eyes. Oh, goodness. Do we... I don't know what to do. Look closer. Let's see if we get this later down the line. I took her hands and pulled her closer. We stood still for a moment regarding each other. People will talk. We're alone. Everyone else has passed out. Who's going to say anything? Can I take you on a proper date? She looked confused. I'm right here. Isn't this more efficient? But whatever you say. Until next time, then. She gave me a flustered bow and left the room. I shut the door and got back into bed. I slept more soundly than I had in months. I think if we want to earn her respect and perhaps her long-term affections, we need to do it when we're not both very, very drunk indeed. And my hope is that it will actually secure kind of alliances with her family, with her royal house, but we'll have to see. But that was interesting. Swordland offers investment opportunity. Amidst the recession, Swordland's government, led by Alfonso, has presented a potentially lucrative bond sale or trade opportunity to be discussed at the capital of Swordland, Whole Sword. This royal visit will include the household and has additional expenditures. Oh, that's money I'm not sure we have to spend. But we'll do it, because I think it'll be worth it. I do think it'll be worth it in some regard anyway. So, we've got a delegation trip to discuss the bond offer, but I think we'll go into Swordland next time. That was a pretty interesting episode with a lot of political things here, a lot of love in the air between myself and my butler and myself and my war minister. We'll have to see how that goes. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.